talking about principles of inheritance and variation. This is the topic where we broadly call it as genetics. Now, genetics, as you all know, that it is nothing but the study of genes, the hereditary characters, variation, etc. Now, together, when we are studying about the functions of gene, where they are present, how they are responsible, and how does it help us to manipulate to produce a better organism, together we study in principles of inheritance and variation. That is why the term comes as principles, because genes, as we know as the units of inheritance, they have certain principles. When they pass down from one generation to the other, they have certain principles. Now, what do you mean by the word inheritance? Now, for example, when we talk about a character, that is, for example, height is a character. Our parents will be of a particular height, which will be passed on to the children. So if the father is tall, maybe the children are tall. If the mother is dwarf, maybe the children are dwarf. So here, when we use the term inheritance, the passing down of characters from the parental generation to the next generation is called as inheritance. Inheritance of the characters, inheritance of the variations in those characters. So next is variations. Now here, what do we mean by that variation? As I said, if you consider height as a character, there may be two variations. Either they may be tall, or they may be dwarf, or they may be of intermediate height. Now when we talk about the skin color in humans, so the skin color, neither we may be black or we may be around fair skinned or brown skin like Indians. So the character there is the skin color, whereas here the variations may be either they are black or they may be fair or they may be brown. Now in this particular chapter we are going to study those all characters, variations with respect to the genetics. When we talk about the chapter called as genetics, what does it come to our mind? It is none other than our father of genetics, called as Gregor Mendel. So Gregor Mendel, he is known as the father of genetics. Now, he conducted exclusive experiments on Pisum sativum, or what we call as the pea plant or garden pea plant. The botanical name of the garden pea plant is Pisum sativum, or it is also called as the garden pea plant, Pisum sativum or the pea plant. He conducted experiments for around 7 years, ranging from 1856 to 1863. He conducted experiments with respect to this particular plant, and he formulated the laws of genetics. So, in a broader term, we call genetics as the study of genes, and this genetics, it involves inheritance, variation, characters, etc. Now, let us talk about Gregor Mendel. Gregor Mendel, he was a monk in a monastery, and he had a small plot of land just beside his monastery where he conducted the experiments based upon the pea plant. Now, we know about the first law of genetics called as law of dominance. Now, how did he come across this law of dominance? Now, if we can take this particular plant called as Pisum sativum, he had a large sampling in that field which was next to his monastery. So that large sampling field gave him the upper hand or the free hand to talk about the ratios, either it may be genotypic ratio or it may be a phenotypic ratio. Now, here, this Pisum sativum, why did he select that particular plant? Why not any other plant? Because the sampling size was large. And how did he get that large sampling size? As I said, the field which was beside his monastery, and that small field, it gave rise to a large number of plants. And each plant was capable of giving rise to more number of seeds. Thousands of seeds could be produced. More the number of seeds, more the variations could be found out. The next thing, it gave rise to bisexual flowers. So what do we mean by bisexual flower? The The flower had both androecium and gynoecium. Androecium, which is the male reproductive structure, and gynoecium, which is the female reproductive structure. So that plant, Pisum sativum, it gave rise to bisexual flowers, gave rise to large number of seeds, and with a small plot of land, he had a large sampling, and here the lifespan of the plant was less. That means many generations could be brought about with a short span of time. Therefore, he took this particular plant, Pisum sativum, for his experiments. Now, what were the experiments he did? First thing to conduct an experiment for Pisum sativum was to get a true breeding plant, or what we call as a true breeding variety. What do we mean by true breeding plant or true breeding variety? Now, a pure line or a true breeding variety, both are one and the same. So, this true breeding variety or pure line, this plant, when it was self-pollinated for many generations, for the homozygosity to be retained, is called as a pure line. That is, for several generations, what Mendel did was he pollinated them. He self-pollinated these plants. That is, in the sense, not in the botanical sense. What Mendel did was he used these hybridization techniques where he cut the cut the stamens, or emasculation technique, and he hand pollinated them. So, as it was a bisexual flower, first he removed the stamens of one flower, then he considered the other flower, and in that flower, that is whether it may be the seeds, the number of seeds, or it may be about the height of the plant. So, he considered two plants, and these two plants were considered as the parental plants. For example, if you take the height as a character, so we were talking about the pure breeding variety or pure breeding line or pure line. Now this pure line is obtained by cross-hybridization techniques which were brought about by Mendel. He followed the process of emasculation, etc. That is, as Pisum sativum is a bisexual flower, what he did was, in one flower he took out the stamen, in the other he pollinated using this stamen. Now, for example, if we consider one character like that of height, he considered two parental plants which were tall in nature, and the pollen grains of one plant were transferred by hand to the stigma of the other plant, that is the flower of the other plant, where he had already removed the stamens of that particular flower. So by hand, he removed the stamens of one flower, took out the pollen grains from the other flower, that is a tall plant, and he hybridized. Cross hybridization by using the hand. Now this cross hybridization techniques, which were done by Mendel, it were done for successive generations, for many generations to come. He followed this technique until by self-pollination they did not produce any other variation. So after around 6 to 7 generations, when this technique was followed, it gave rise to certain plants where upon self-pollination too, they retain their characters. Now such plants are called as pure lines. For all the hybridization experiments by Mendel, he considered these pure lines as parents. Whatever ratios he got by using either the dihybrid ratio, monohybrid ratio, or what we are talking about, monohybrid cross, dihybrid cross, for all these, he used these pure lines. Now, pure line parents, which we call them as parental generations, they are called as parental generations. As I was talking about the different ratios which have been brought about, or the laws which have been brought about by Mendel, what he did was, he considered here the 7 characters. There are many characters in the pea plant, but however, he considered only 7 contrasting traits of a character. Now let us just see what are those 7 characters which have these contrasting traits. But do remember, the plant has many other characters, but Mendel selected only these 7 characters, and he had these contrasting traits in those characters. Now, if you go to these contrasting characters and their traits, first we have to know more about the plant. The first character which was given by Mendel was height of the stem or height of the plant. Now, height of stem or height of the plant, there may be 2 traits, either they may be tall or they may be dwarf. The plant may either be tall or it may be dwarf. The next thing will be the flower color or color of the flower. Now, when we talk about color of flower, there are 2 colors. One is called as violet, the other one is white. So 2 contrasting colors are present, violet and white. Next is the position of flower. So when we are talking about the position of flower, it may be either axial or it may be terminal. So axial or terminal. The next one is shape of pod. Now the shape of the pod may either be inflated or it may be constricted. Okay. Next one is color of the pod. It may be yellow or green. Next is shape of the seed. The shape of the seed may be round or wrinkled. The last one will be color of the seed, may be yellow or green. Now these are the 7 contrasting characters which are there, which have these contrasting traits. That is height of the stem, color of the flower, position of flower, shape of pod, color of pod, shape of seed and color of seed. He used these 7 contrasting triads for these 7 characters, and he brought about, how did he bring about the ratios? He brought about by using pure lines. Okay, so next let us go about few definitions, and first let us start with the definition called as the gene. Just some time back I said that the genes, they are called as units of heredity. A simple definition about the gene is called as unit of heredity. It is also called as unit of inheritance. So these genes, where are they present? They are present on a particular position on the DNA. All of us know that the new cell contains nucleus, the nucleus, it contains chromosomes, and on these chromosomes, what are present? The chromosomes are nothing but DNA, and on these DNA, the genes are present. Therefore, we define genes as the unit of heredity. They are responsible for transferring the characters from one generation to the other generation. Or we can also define it as a unit of inheritance. So here, all these characters which are there, they are inherited from one generation, that is the parental generation, to the next generation, that is the daughter generation. So those are called as genes. So genes have dual functions. Please note that they have dual functions. One is unit of heredity, the other one is unit of inheritance. Next, alleles. Now what are these alleles? Now alternate forms of gene are called as alleles. For example, now here we have the height of stem. Height of stem is a character, and this character is represented by a gene. Now this gene has 2 forms here. One is tall, the other one is dwarf. Gene is single for a particular character, and this gene will be expressed in alternate forms, that is the tall and the dwarf. So alleles, they represent the alternate forms of genes. Okay. Now here, if for example I said that height of the stem, let us tell that it is represented by a gene called as T. Now, height of the stem, it is represented by a gene called as T. As we are all diploid organism, a single T, it represents the haploid condition, whereas a double T, it represents the diploid condition. Here, we are going to consider this as a diploid organism, therefore, or a diploid plant body. Therefore, here, single gene and 2 genes. It is a diploid organism. When I represent this word T for the height of the stem, this is a character which has 2 variations. Now, the alternate forms of gene, this is diploid, tall. Now, this one is dwarf. It is represented by small or the lowercase letters. The letters which I have considered here, T, it is for the sake of convenience. We can also consider different letters, but however, for the sake of convenience, throughout the world, we usually follow the same letter for tall, T, and capital T or uppercase T, and lowercase t and t for the dwarf representation. Now, the character has 2 variations. The gene has 2 variations here, and here it is one for tall, which is represented by the uppercase letters. The next is for dwarf, which is represented by the lowercase letters. Now, when there are 2 letters present together over here, and we don't see any combination of these 2, we use the term called as homozygous condition. Okay, the next is homozygous condition. What do you mean by this homozygous condition? When the alleles are similar, we call it as homozygous condition. This is homozygous and this is homozygous condition. For example, when we see a plant, it looks tall, but when we look into the genetic makeup, it will not be tall. It may be either having one capital T and one small t. So if a plant, for example, it has one capital T and one small t, you can see they are different. Genotypically, that is the genes here, the alleles which are there, they are dissimilar in nature. Such dissimilar alleles, they are called as heterozygous alleles. So they are called as heterozygous alleles. when the alleles are dissimilar, heterozygous. When the alleles are similar, homozygous alleles. Now, the next one, when the alleles are similar, dissimilar, yes, it is done. We call it as either homozygous or we call it as heterozygous condition. Then, here we have to know that a particular character, tall or dwarf, are there, but in nature we also see intermediate heights. The plant may be either tall, or it may be of medium height, or it may be dwarf. That representation, the morphological representation, is whatever the plants which are there. It is called as the genotype and the phenotype. The morphological representation is called as the phenotype, whereas the genetic representation is called as the genotype. So next will be genotype and phenotype. So genotype is the genetic representation. We have capital T or lowercase tt. This one is the genetic representation. Genetic representation for a tall plant, genetic representation for a dwarf plant. So when we use the term called as the phenotype, phenotype is a morphological representation. So what is that morphological representation? The plant is tall, that is morphological representation. The plant is dwarf, that is a morphological representation. Sometimes when we see the genetic makeup like that of one of the uppercase letter, the other of the lowercase letter. Now this plant may be tall. How? Tall morphologically. When it is tall morphologically, we use the term called as phenotype. So you have to note that. Now this phenotypically, this plant is tall. Phenotypically, this plant is tall. But genotypically, here we represent it by uppercase letter. And here we are going to represent it by both uppercase and lowercase letter. So that is the difference between the genotype and the phenotype. Genetically, that is the genes which are representing that particular character is called as the genotype. Morphological expression of that organism based on the genes is called as the phenotype. So genotypically, you can see the difference over there for the tall plants, uppercase, and here we have both an upper and the lowercase letter. But phenotypically, both of them are tall. Now, these are certain terminologies to study genetics. Gene, it is called as a unit of inheritance. Alleles, it is the alternate forms of gene, like that of that capital T and the small t. Homozygous condition, when the alleles are similar, we call it as homozygous condition. Heterozygous condition, when the alleles are dissimilar. Genotype, this is the genes which represent a particular triad, and phenotype, the morphological expression of the genes, is called as the phenotype. As said before, I said that Mendel put forward the laws of genetics, and to study these laws of genetics, we are here taking up the first one called as inheritance of one gene. While we are studying about this inheritance of one gene, we are going to know about the first law, that is law of dominance. Now before going to the laws, first let us study what do you mean by this inheritance of one gene. That is, a single gene, how is it represented? Which character does it hold? Or does it hold the alternate traits also? Now all these things we are going to study in inheritance of one gene. Mendel, he conducted experiments on Pisum sativum or pea plant, even for this inheritance of one gene. Now here let us consider the parental generation, and as I said before, the parental generation should have these pure lines. I'll repeat again, the pure line is nothing but when by successive self-pollination for up to around 5 to 6 generations, it does not lose its character, it does not lose its triad, we call it as a pure line. Now for example, when we take a tall plant upon 5 to 6 generation of self-pollination, all the progeny which it gives rise to, all of them will be tall. So if that homozygosity is maintained for around 5 to 6 generations, such a plant is called as a pure line. Now for this experiment, we are going to take pure lines as a parental generation. We call that as a parental generation. Now here, for this parental generation, we are going to take a plant with a single character. First, let us take height of the stem. Now, in height of the stem, parental generation, the height of the stem, let us consider here two parents. One will be tall, the other one will be dwarf. So, parental generation, one is tall and one is dwarf. Now, how are you going to represent them genotypically? So, here you are going to write them as capital T, capital T. The dwarf plant will be having small t, small t. The upper and the lower case letters. So, these are the parental generations which are nothing but the pure lines. Okay. Next, we are going to cross-pollinate them. So, here we are going to cross-pollinate these two. Now, once we cross-pollinate, the generation which comes first is called as F1 generation, or it is also called as first filial generation. First generation or first filial generation. Now, in this F1 generation, when we cross, now what are the probability factors here? We get capital T, small t, then capital T and small t. Now, as I explained before, this one is dissimilar in nature. Genotypically, they are dissimilar. So, however, when we consider phenotypically, both the plants, they are tall. So, this is also tall and this is also a tall plant. Both of them are tall. Genotypically, yes, they are dissimilar, but phenotypically, both the plants are tall. Now, we are going to again cross-pollinate them to obtain an F2 generation, or it is also called as second filial generation. First filial generation, second filial generation, or F2 generation. How do we obtain this second filial generation? Okay, now here we are going to consider these two plants. We are going to self-pollination. So here so when we pollinate these two, we are going to obtain the second filial generation. To obtain the second filial generation, let us put up a Punnett square. Now this Punnett square, it was given by a person called as Reginald Punnett. Reginald Punnett was a British geneticist, and this British geneticist, he gave rise to this Punnett square. Now this Punnett square, it is a graphical representation to know all the possible genotypes of the offspring. Okay, graphical representation to know all the possible genotypes of the offspring. Now, how are we going to do this? Now, Punnett square, you are going to write them in the form of rows and columns. So, in this row and column, now here, we'll consider this as one parent and this as the other parent. This parent will be the female and this parent will be the male. So here we are going to consider this particular row as that of the female and let this be the male. Okay. So in this Punnett square, now you can observe that after crossing these two, okay, after crossing the progeny, now here we obtain this sort of statistics in the Punnett square. Now here, as we can see from the parental generation, this genetical combination, it represents, or the genotype represents tall plants. Though the alleles are dissimilar, both of them also represent tall plants. But however, this one also represents the parents and this one is a dwarf plant. Here we have to see that both the parents can be seen in F2 generation. In F1 generation, yes, phenotypically we see the parental generation, but genotypically we don't see the parental generation. When we pollinate these two, next what do we obtain in F2 generation? We are going to see the parental generation as well as F1 generation. So parental and F2 generations are seen. But here we have considered two characters, one is tall and one is dwarf. When we look here into our human population, in a given population, we can see that if a mother is short and if the father is tall, the children either they may be of intermediate height or they may be nearer to their parents' height. That expression of the intermediate character is called as blending. But here in Mendel's experiments, we have not observed blending. The parents are tall and dwarf. The F1 generation are tall, though genotypically they are dissimilar. In F2 generation, we see the parental generation as well as the F1 generation. Here, the blending has not occurred. Blending is absent. One of the important points to remember about Mendelian genetics is he didn't observe blending. And as I said, Gregor Mendel basically he was a mathematician. And whatever he gave all the proofs, they were based upon his statistics. So when he put forward all these laws, first law, second law, etc., he gave based upon these statistics. And the biologists at that time, they were not able to take these rules because Mendel, he put forward mathematics to explain biology. So they didn't accept his contemporaries, they didn't accept this theory itself to take up statistics to explain biology. Therefore, his work was left undiscovered for a very long time. Let us study that later. Now here, he giving this Punnett square, he gave certain ratios. One is called as a genotypic ratio, the other one is called as the phenotypic ratio. Now, genotypic ratio and phenotypic ratio. Now, if you see the genotypic ratio, one is completely tall, okay, then two are tall, then one is completely dwarf. So, tall, okay, these two are also tall, but they are different, and this one is dwarf, which had, this is capital T, capital T, capital T, small t, and small t, small t. This is the genotypic ratio. 1:2:1. So this one is known as the genotypic ratio of a monohybrid cross. Then what will be the phenotypic ratio? So what did I tell about the phenotypic ratio? Now phenotypic is the morphological expression. Phenotypic is the morphological expression. So morphologically when we see all these three plants are tall. So three of them they are tall. Whereas this one it is dwarf. One is dwarf. So now what is the phenotypic ratio? 3:1. This one is the phenotypic ratio. 3:1. Tall is to dwarf. Now based upon all these about inheritance of one gene, a single gene, how has it inherited? Which gave rise to the genotypic and phenotypic ratio. 1:2:1 and 3:1. These are the genotypic and the phenotypic ratios respectively. Again, by using the formula a plus b whole square is equal to a square plus b square plus 2ab, we can derive the same genotypic ratio, that is 1:2:1. Okay, so now let us see that how do we see the how can we apply this ratio to that of the mathematical expression a plus b whole square. So now whatever we expressed in the genotypic and the phenotypic ratio, I said that as Mendel was a mathematician, he put it into the mathematical formula which you have studied from school. It is called as a plus b whole square, which is equal to a square plus b square plus 2ab. Now same thing we are going to apply to the height of the plant. So for example here, the uppercase letters for the expression of tallness plus the lowercase letters. I am taking here about a pair because these are diploid organisms. So what are we going to get here? We are going to get capital T, capital T, that is the tall plants, they are quarter of the tall plants, plus half of them, they are heterozygous tall plants, plus the quarter of them, they are homozygous dwarf plants. So here we have homozygous tall, homozygous dwarf, quarter of them, that is T plus T whole square, it gives rise to T, that is homozygous tall, heterozygous tall and homozygous dwarf. So here 1:2:1 ratio. So this genotypic ratio of 1:2:1 can also be deduced using the mathematical formula A plus B whole square. Now here, when we are deriving so, we should also know certain aspects which we call them as to know the unknown genotype. Now for example, someone is going to give us a plant. Now this plant, how are we going to look at the plant is tall? Phenotypically it is tall. Now genotypically, how do we know whether it is homozygous tall or whether it is heterozygous tall? Now for this, we are going to do a cross. Okay, so let us see about how are we going to determine the unknown genotype of a given plant. So this unknown genotype of the given plant can be determined by again using Punnett square. So next let us study about this test cross. So as I said before, what do you mean by this test cross? Now the test cross is to determine if this particular cross is done to an unknown plant to determine the genotype of that particular hybrid. Usually, how can we define this test cross? To determine the unknown genotype of the F1 or the F2 hybrid, we are going to cross it with its recessive parent, and that test is called as a test cross. Crossing an F1 or an F2 hybrid with its recessive parent to determine the genotype is called as a test cross. Now for example, as we were talking about the height of the stem, now there is a plant which is tall in nature. Now we don't know whether it is homozygous tall or heterozygous tall. Now in the first case, let us think that it is homozygous tall. Now this homozygous tall plant, it is crossed with its recessive parent. So if it is crossed with its recessive parent, so this will be the parent, and here we are going to determine this unknown genotype. So this is an unknown genotype. Now in this unknown genotype, again we are going to put a Punnett square, and so here you can see that we get capital T, small t, okay. So in this Punnett square, this is the parental generation, that is the recessive parent. The test cross, what did it state? To know the unknown genotype, we are going to cross it with its recessive parent. So the parent is recessive in nature, so it is a recessive parent. When we cross it with its recessive parent, then what is the ratio which we get? All the plants are tall in nature, so all are tall. Now for example, let us consider the other unknown genotype. Either it may be, now it is heterozygous tall. So it is again crossed with its recessive parent. When it is crossed with its recessive parent, let us see what is the phenotype which is brought about. Now when you see this phenotype, the ratio here is 1:1. The plants are tall, that is they are heterozygous tall to that of homozygous dwarf. So the ratio will be 1:1. And this ratio it is observed for whatever character Mendel has considered. Either it may be height of the stem. In the textbooks they have given with respect to the flower color, or we may take the position of the flower. So whatever character we take, if the plant has a similar genotype, then all the plants will be tall. If it has a dissimilar genotype, that is one is tall, the other gene represents the dwarfness, but the plant is tall, then we get the ratio of 1:1. Now, we can say that when we have to determine the unknown genotype of the F1 hybrid, so the plant, if it is considered this, then the next progeny, all of them will be tall. Now, if we consider this scenario, then we get the plants in the ratio of 1:1. So that is about test cross. So again, I am going to define what is test cross. To determine the unknown genotype of the F1 or the F2 hybrid, we are going to cross it with its recessive parent, and that is termed as test cross.